Florida, Georgia's annoying downstairs neighbor. It's been around for about 251 million years, and all of those years have set the stage for events such as these. So Florida is a pretty crazy place because of the people, but it's also pretty geologically strange. For starters, it's a huge landmass of limestone. It's just a huge deposit of the stuff, jutting out into the Caribbean off the North American continent. It's not even made up of the same rock as the rest of the continent it's part of.
Florida's topography is mostly made of limestone. This is due to its long period of time underwater. Limestone is formed in warm, shallow seas and is mostly made of organisms such as forearms, mollusks, coral, and more. These animals live on the bottom of the sea, and when they die, their shells accumulate into piles of shelly debris. Another great resource for limestone is reefs. Limestone is used in chalk, cement, and other building materials. It is also the material that makes up Florida today. Karst is a term geologists use to describe landscapes found on carbonate rocks. This makes the entire state of Florida a karst region. Karst topography is characterized by underground drainage, disappearing streams, sinkholes, and caves. Karst regions contain aquifers, which is a layer of rock that is able to hold and absorb water. These aquifers are capable of providing large supplies of groundwater, but are also susceptible to pollution. Conditions that promote karst development are dense limestone near the surface, a moderate rainfall, and good groundwater circulation.
The lesser-known plague intended for biblical Egypt was the plague of sinkholes, but God missed and hit Florida instead. Aside from the shenanigans of Florida man, the surge of invasive species, and the shrinking wetlands, sinkholes are probably the biggest problem faced by Floridians. See, there's a thin clay sediment layer over much of Florida called the Hawthorne Formation, and it looks like it's the only thing that holds the state together. However, it is actually the cause of violent, destructive sinkholes. Let me explain. There are two types of sinkholes. Solution sinkholes, which are pretty mellow. They're the stoners of the sinkholes. Then there are collapse sinkholes, and they are far, far from mellow. The first type, solution sinkholes, form under areas where there is sandy sediment above layers of limestone. These sinkholes begin to form when acidic rain seeps into the limestone layer through the sand and begins to react and weather the carbonates in the limestone. As the limestone is broken down, the sand above filters in to fill the cracks left by weathering and erosion. The sand that falls causes the topography of the area to dip, forming a basin where rainwater collects. These sinkholes often become wetlands or shallow lakes. The second type, collapse sinkholes, form in areas where there is a rigid clay layer over a bed of limestone. You know, a layer like the Hawthorne Formation that covers most of limestone Florida. Anyway, the process behind these sinkholes begins with underground acidic water that erodes the limestone out from under the clay layer. Now the clay layer is rigid enough to hold its own weight for a while, until the cavity underneath grows too large. The clay ceiling then violently collapses, taking with it any buildings, vehicles, and Floridians that happen to be on the surface. Now here is a particularly famous Florida sinkhole, the Great Sinkhole of '89 in Winter Park. Over the course of several days, a 350-foot wide and 75-foot deep hole opened in the backyard of Miss May Rose Owens. The total losses from the sinkhole include 5 luxury cars, a pickup truck that was thankful to be in such fancy company, an Olympic-sized community pool, and a 3-bedroom house for a total of $2 to $4 million worth of damages. A total of 250,000 cubic yards of rock and soil were displaced. Geologist Jim Jamal, Florida's resident expert on sinkhole phenomenon, commented that this sinkhole was, quote, the largest sinkhole ever witnessed by man as a result of natural geological reasons or conditions. Today, the sinkhole is a lake called Rose Lake, after May Rose Owens, who first noticed the hole.